Hey y'all, and welcome to Hawk Off the Press after the final score edition. I'm Leah Vann. I'm your Hawkeye football beat writer, and I'm joined by our columnist, Hlas. Yeah, so we're breaking down this game.
30-7.
30-7.
Would you have taken 30-7 coming in if you're an Iowa fan? I say you absolutely would.
Yeah. Well, I also put in my prediction 30-0 in the paper.
Oh, very good.
So I was actually pretty close. So I'm.
You were
impressed.
2 passes from being perfect. I mean, that
I
one
was.
drive, two Kent State passes, that was it.
Yeah.
Of course, they should have had 14.
Right. But hey, it was funny. I felt like it felt pretty lackluster at first, and yet you're looking at the stats, you're looking at this post game. Iowa actually did pretty well offensively. Like, I had to kind of go through and rewrite some of my gamer. Why do you think that is?
I think because it was deceptive.
Mm-hmm.
Not deceptive as much as it wasn't spectacular.
Right.
Tyler Goodson had the 2 big touchdown runs, but outside of that, I mean, the passing game was a lot of underneath stuff, a lot of short stuff. And
all the bubble screens.
Yeah, and it wasn't big chunks, but it did add up, and they did move the ball. They did get first downs. They did score 30 points. And I know that there was some grumbling and muttering and some downright audible, noise from the crowd about Petrus, I think, in the first half. But they managed the game, they got the win, and they move on.
Yeah, I think for context, I mean, it's worth noting that Dustin Crum had those 2 big passes in the first half to Keyshawn Abram, which was, the 48-yarder, the 45-yarder. So he was averaging, 20 yards per pass, by comparison, Petrus is throwing those quick passes, and yeah, sure, he has more yards, but it's like 7.3 yards per pass. So I think that's kind of the perception is like people want to see those big, deep balls.
Yeah, I think that if Iowa's offense is solid, that team's winning week after week.
Right.
It's not going to be a spectacular offense. I just don't see it with a receiving core, with an offensive line that is a work in progress, although it's pretty good. But it's
pretty good.
It's got a ways to go to be among Iowa's best offensive lines. And Petrus is, he also is a work in progress. But for the 5th straight game, the guy didn't throw an interception.
And I think that's very notable because obviously, the key is to keep the ball in your hands. And they certainly did. I mean, man, that 95-yard drive, can we talk about that? It was like 8 minutes long. But what a grueling drive to really press through. I mean, yeah, there was a fumble. Sam Laporta kind of keeps the drive alive after Ivory Kelly-Martin almost kind of gives it up. But, man, that's quite the stellar performance by the offense.
It was, and Petrus did make plays on that drive. Again, nothing spectacular, but the job got done. And to me, the game was a tale of 2 long drives. Iowa's 95-yard drive, and Kent State had a drive that went 75 yards, but they couldn't get the 76th yard because they fumbled the ball away in the end zone.
Right. That, again, was Justin Jacobs forcing that fumble. Another huge stellar play by him, and especially in that kind of deep in the territory. So
yeah, this guy's not a starter technically. Realistically, yeah, he is, but
depends on the scheme. Yeah,
he wasn't in the starting lineup for the first snap, okay, but he's in on a lot of stops, and as Jack Campbell said in the press conference, he has a knack for getting the ball loose. Well, Campbell has a knack for doing about everything. Through 3 weeks, my gosh. It's Jack Campbell, the All-American boy.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think I saw there was one play where one of their running backs, it might have been Marquez Cooper, was trying to run around on the outside, and you see Jack Campbell just is right there, and he just outruns him and crushes him for like a tackle for loss. And I wouldn't take. He's fast. Yeah. I wouldn't take him on if I were a running back going on the edge. I would just rather go up the middle.
No, it was it's 3 weeks and they've allowed a total of 4 touchdowns, and I think that they've been playing against. I think they played against 3 good quarterbacks.
Yes.
And today, 7 sacks, which is a crazy number. 10 tackles for losses. And the people getting the sacks, I mentioned that Jacobs is technically not a starter. Joe Evans has 2 sacks. He's not a starter, but he seems like he has more sacks per snap, or however, if I'm wording that wrong, than anybody anywhere. I mean, Terry Roberts, backup
Terry
quarterback.
Roberts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you wrote about him just before the season started. He makes a special teams play early in the game that was a difference maker, that set up the safety, actually.
Right.
Just blows up a punt return. And then he gets his time on the field at cornerback as a backup.
He gets a pass breakup.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's from Erie, Pennsylvania. And Iowa fans know that defensive backs from Erie, Pennsylvania are good things to have. Bob Sanders and Jovan Johnson are the stuff of Iowa legends.
Same area, yeah.
And Roberts might have put a smile on Bob Sanders' face today with some of the plays he was making, both at corner and on special teams.
Yeah, I think about all the guys who made the sacks. So Lucas Van Ness is one of the guys that we got to talk to today.
Another guy.
We haven't really met him, really. But he had a great
sacks.
game. Two sacks. I mean, I think I put the list out on Twitter. It seemed like, you're right. A lot of those guys who are kind of the next man in, that's really the mentality here is, it's not necessarily about who gets to start, but who comes in and makes the play.
Yeah, there's plenty of playing time on defense. And Ferentz, I asked him about it today, and Ferentz says it's because we're inexperienced. Well, you're using your second teamers for one of 2 reasons. Either your starters aren't very good, or you have a lot of good players. And with this defense, it's the latter.
Definitely. And if we go back to the offense, I think it's worth noting that this was a career high game for Tyler Goodson. He had 153 yards, and then that doesn't include his reception yards, which I think got 9. So that's his best game, I guess, since Minnesota last November, where he had 142 yards, 154 total yards, if you include his receptions. So, what was working for Goodson today?
His first touchdown, he said he knew it was going to be a touchdown before he touched the ball.
I know. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. And it was just a great play call. Kent State's defense was going the other way.
They were fooled.
Petrus flips that weird-looking pitch to Goodson, and it was, blue sky and green grass. Mm-hmm. Goodbye. The second one was blocking. I mean, it was perfectly blocked. And Goodson did what great running backs do when they get that kind of blocking, and away he went. But he was really solid the whole day. Besides the 2 huge plays, he was getting 5 yards here, 6 yards there, putting the team in good situations all game long.
I think that's the performance he needed after last week against Iowa State. I know Iowa State has a great defense, but he really struggled last week. Getting I think 67 yards was his total, but Indiana he got a great showing. It just was a little bit short. You could tell it was a little bit short of what he wanted.
And it is a rebuilt, for lack of a better word, offensive line that is
right.
It's coming together. You've got Linderbaum, and everybody knows what he is, but there's not. I mean, Schott was hurt and missed the first 2 games. You got a lot of new people in there, and so they've done all right.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it was a solid performance for Iowa. I think credit to Kent State.
I think that's a good team.
It's a good team.
I mean, I look for them to have a nice season in the MAC and go to a bowl game.
Yeah, for sure. Their quarterback was impressive. I know that he was sacked several times. It's not necessarily his fault. I thought their quarterback was impressive. I thought they had a lot of...
they played unafraid.
Yeah, they had nothing to lose, and I know they lost this game, but I think they'll be good in their conference, for sure.
And now Colorado State, which is not a particularly good team based on what we've seen from them so far. So it's one more tune-up before, the real show starts again.
Yeah, and I think that, it'll be good to get more reps, and especially for those younger guys. And then you've got Kyler Schott will probably be 100% healthy by that first conference game in Maryland.
Yeah, it's probably going to be more of the same next week. It's fine-tuning and, young players getting another game under their belts, and because once Colorado State's out of here, and we can do what the football team can't, and we can assume a victory, but once Colorado State's out of here, it's on. You go to Maryland, and what's after that, Penn State. So, I mean, you can hear it in Ferentz's voice. He says he wants them to start getting better fast, and they're going to need to.
Yeah. Well, and I think Riley Moss said it too, that they have, he said, we're not perfect, but we want to be better every week, and they firmly believe they are getting better every week. I know we didn't see as many turnovers today, still got a couple, but, it was an all-around good performance by Iowa, and, yeah, I think that's pretty much all there is to say.
Yeah, it's bring on the Rams of Colorado State, I guess.
All right, y'all. Well, thanks for joining us on After the Final Score, and we'll be back next week with Hawk Off the Press.